Sketch the graph of y equals sine x from 0 to 360. Well, this is a calculator question, so if you had no idea how to do this, then you could substitute some values in for x and try and, that might just help you remember it. I would strongly advise you just learn this graph. It's such an important function. It goes between -1 and 1, and it starts from 0, and it reaches 1 at 90 degrees. It then goes back through 0. These are just some key values to learn. At 270, it's -1 and it goes back to 0. And what we get is a sort of wave kind of function. I was quite impressed with that. That's pretty good. If you forgot that, then this is what you'd have to do. You'd have to maybe, you'd find sine of 0 and you'd get 0, and you could then plot that. You could do sine of 180 and you'd get 0 again, and so on. And then you could even, I suppose you don't want to reveal to the examiner that you're doing this, so try and be a bit discreet. But yeah, you could try sine of 0.5. Sorry, not sine of 0.5. Sine of 30, which is 0.5, and you'd sort of think, yep, it's going up. It's just remembering the general shape as well. Okay, so that's the graph. Solve the equation 5 sine x equals -3. How do we deal with this? Well, it's not sine times x, it's sine of x. So it's a bit like if you have sort of 4x squared equals 3, you could square root everything here, but it's a really good idea to divide by 4 first. Here, actually, you must do that. Whenever you have a sine equation, rearrange it to sine x equals -3/5. You're going to be in a bad way if you don't do that. That actually gets 1 mark, even if we didn't know what to do from there. But this is when you first do trigonometry, you tend to find lengths of sides, but the bit that comes after that is finding angles. And to find angles, this is the sort of thing you do. You find out what sine x is, and then you do the opposite of sine to undo it. So x is equal to inverse sine of -3/5. I'm going to put this into a bracket just to make it a bit clearer. And that's half the battle anyway. So it's going to be inverse sine of -3/5. Probably best to close the bracket. And I get -36.869. Well, that is not very nice, is it? Because that's not in the range. But let's write that down, -36.869. What we have actually done is the fact this graph actually carries on like so. And what are we interested in? Okay, because I didn't talk about this. I probably should have already. We are interested in where sine x is -3/5. That's -0.6. So we're interested in where the graph meets the line of y equals -0.6. And we've just found this solution here, but it's not in the range we're interested in. We're only interested in this range. So we need to work out this value here and this value here, which is a bit tougher. And that's the tough bit about this question, actually. So I did say we've got half the battle, but I think the main battle, to be honest, is this next bit. Okay, sine actually carries on like this forever. So this is what happens with sine. And we say it has a period of 360. It repeats every 360 degrees. And that essentially finds us the first proper solution, because to go from here to here, I add 360 degrees. So if I take my minus answer and add 360 degrees, I get 323.13. So I would write down -36.869 plus 360 equals, I've managed to forget what the answer was, 323.13. And I would write that down just the nearest, so for 3 sig figs, nearest whole number, 323. Okay, how do we get this one here? Now this is where you have to know even a bit more about the sine curve. We have to know about the symmetries of the sine curve. And if you look at this, it is symmetric. If you only look at this part of it, then the graph is symmetric about the 270, and that's the key bit basically, because this distance here is going to be exactly the same as this distance here. So I want to work out what 360 minus 323.13 is. That's actually going to be 36.869. Okay, and you can do that in the calculator if you want, but the fact is that that distance there is also 36.869. It's just then I say it's a negative. Okay, so I'm nearly there because I know that this solution is then 36.869 away from 180. So my last solution is 180. There are other ways of doing this, by the way, but I just think this way I'm really showing that I understand the graph well. Okay, rather than trying to just learn a bunch of formulae. So that is going to be 216.869, and I would round that to 217 degrees. Okay, and that's the answer. Now, if we want to be really just careful and see if we're correct, like we haven't made a mistake, we could find sine of those answers. So sine of 323. Whoops. Okay, now I've rounded it, so I'm not expecting it to be exactly minus 0.6, but I'm expecting it to be pretty close. And that is pretty close. If we do the other one, sine of 217, this is a great thing when you're solving equations in maths. If you've got a bit of time, you can just substitute it back in and check it works. Sine of 217 is also about, it's a minus 0.6. So I would be really happy with this. You know, I've shown my working on the graph. I've shown the different steps here. I've got answers which I substitute back in, and I get about minus 0.6. I know I'm correct.